Well, Chris, I mean, I think we kind of have to start with MJF threatening to set Mark Briscoe on fire. And I mean, I don't even know what to say. I just don't know what to say to this getting greenlit. I don't know what it says to me about Tony Khan, MJF, Hangman Page. It's hack. It has no place in wrestling. It's not that I'm offended by it, other than I'm offended by the notion that MJF, as smart as he is, or I think he is, thinks that that's an effective way to tell a story. I mean, it puts the announcers in this position to have to underreact. Like, they're acting like he said something mean about his mother, or he yanked a precious bracelet off his wrist or something. Like, oh, it's despicable what he did. It's like, no, he should be fired and arrested. And nothing that Hangman said under duress should be something Tony Khan accepts as standing. And yeah, I mean, he should be arrested. He should be fired. He should be suspended. I mean, but this is how AEW does things. So I don't know how often we can go to the outrage machine. I mean, Moxley tried to, suffocate someone. I mean, like, this setting a house on fire is ridiculous too. This felt like as bad as anything, honestly, for me, because it was uncomfortable to watch. But at the same time, it wasn't, because it was so fake and out of the realm of where wrestling fans are emotionally when they watch wrestling. It just felt hack and stupid. Chris.
Yeah. Look, I get what they were going for. It's a callback to burning down the house. Sure. I get that. There is a huge difference between property damage and attempted murder.
Or a threat of attempted murder, which obviously he's not going to do.
It's like, okay. You could have achieved the exact same result by putting a chair around his ankle and threatening to stamp on it.
There you go.
Which is within the bounds of what we expect from professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
And would have got the exact same result. But we had to go to this nonsense again of attempted murder. And there's no escalation from there. This is the same issue that we had with Swerve and Hangman. Where do you go from here? And it took them over a year to repair that damage. I understand what they were going for. Don't get me wrong. And maybe if it had been Hangman's house instead, it wouldn't have been so ridiculous. I tend to save outrage for things that I'm not just fed up with. Like, at this point, I don't even think AEW could surprise me with the ridiculous lengths they're willing to go to. It was probably, for me, the low point of a show I expected to absolutely hate, just because a lot of the New Japan tie-in stuff makes absolutely no sense, which I'm sure we'll get to later on.
I'll give you the floor for that one.
Oh boy, that's dangerous. But it was just stupid. I'm past the point of outrage. I'm past the point of anger. It's just, why?
It's disappointing. I mean, it's
frustrating.
It's disappointing. Like, your solution: put his ankle in a chair and threaten to stomp on it. I mean, and again, I would still complain about that to a degree, in the sense that I think there should be a consistency to what is allowed and not allowed. So I would say that anything Hangman agreed to under that duress should not apply. Tony Khan should just intervene and go, I'm sorry, you don't get to renege on your stipulation last week and add stipulations. I mean, first of all, why is it? I mean, I guess you can, in the realm of wrestling, say the world champion should have the ability to say, I'm going to put the title on the line in a DQ or countout situation. I can kind of live with that. But really, the boss is Tony Khan. And so this notion that Hangman's agreeing to, keep the contract in play and not have to cash that in to get a title shot, that's not MJF's call. It shouldn't be Hangman's call. It's Tony Khan's call. And here's the thing. Can Tony Khan ever fine or suspend anyone again for anything short of actually setting someone on fire? Because apparently the line is you can threaten it and pour gasoline on someone. But the line where you actually face punishment and be pulled from a pay-per-view card, suspended, fined, in some way you'd be punished for this. The line is actually trying to set somebody on fire.
I mean, I think this isn't even the worst thing we've seen done on an AEW program. So I think we already knew the line was well in advance. Jon Moxley tried to murder someone. Hangman Page put a syringe through somebody's cheek. Yep. We've seen people get smacked in the head with concrete blocks. This is nothing, relatively speaking. Yeah. I think if we put aside the nonsense of setting someone on fire, adding you can lose the title on a disqualification stipulation is the dumbest part of the entire thing. Because now MJF, what is to stop MJF from showing up? Ricochet and the Gates of Agony get in the ring. They punch MJF, and MJF wins the title. 5 seconds, done. That is the logical way that you would do that as a heel.
Yep.
But we know that's not going to happen. So why would you even include that as a stipulation? I assume what they're going to do is MJF is just going to try and make Hangman mad so that he hits him with a chair or something. But that's what a face would do. That's not what a heel would do.
Yeah.
So it's just adding stupid on top of stupid.
Yeah, that it is. It is. And
I think what really frustrates me is I was glad they found a way to walk back MJF having to give up his contract. I'm like, okay, if they're going to walk that back, good. I'm happy about that because that's what a heel should be, smart like that. But the way they got there and the stuff that they had to put on the hat on top of the hat, and it's a bad hat at that, just made it worse.
Yeah. And if you know what you're doing, if there's a finesse and a skill to your character if you're MJF, your character if you're Hangman, as a booker and promoter and Tony Khan, you don't need to do this stuff. That's why it's hack. It's so over the top. And I would be stupid if it worked. Also, I would be stupid even if it worked. Like, I would resent it. Like, come on, just find a more, show some finesse and skill in how you tell stories that fit the structure and, the narrative structure of pro wrestling. I mean, but if it worked, you'd be like, well, okay, I got to at least, but it doesn't work. The crowd was silent. They weren't silent like, oh my God, something terrible almost happened. They're silent like, this is so stupid, I don't even know what to do with myself. And like, and then, like I said, the announcers have to react to it. And poor Bryan Danielson sitting there going, well, that was despicable. Well, yeah, but I mean, go on. I mean, it'd be despicable to say mean things about his mom or it's just like, I think it's hack when he goes after his dead brother, but like that. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah. And I mean, this match didn't need that, right?
No.
These are the two future faces of the company. Yep. Who have been the main character and the main antagonist since pretty much day one. You didn't need any more than that. You had the title in there to make it even more important. That's enough. Why are we trying to set someone on fire? Like, you don't need that. Save that for a match that needs, in fact, save it for nothing. But if you're going to go and do something shocking, save it for a match that actually needs it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that your top baby face defending the title that is the pride of AEW that was held hostage for a year, and now you got MJF coming at it. It's like, why are you trying so hard? It's just like, give your date a flower for Valentine's Day. Don't rent a limo, hire a private or rent a private jet, hire a dance line. It's like it's try hard. It's like it's just so needlessly over the top, counterproductively over the top, disqualifyingly stupid, and it doesn't work. Like, the announcers can't just sit there and react. I don't blame them. And what are they supposed to say? If they say what you should say to something that's stupid and over the top, the show would come to a halt, and it would make the fact that there's still a match on for MJF to seem ridiculous. Like, that's the kind of thing you would do if you're. I don't even want to say there's even a context where you should, but basically, if MJF were injured and couldn't wrestle, you would do this, and then you would suspend him for 90 days. Like, this would be an excuse to say, nope, you're done. We can't have this anymore. Tony Khan lays down the law. This is so beyond the realm. If he had a 2-3 month injury he needed to recover from, you'd suspend him for 3 months, and you'd be like, I could almost, I mean, I'd still be against it. I think it's hack, but at least it would make some sense. Like, okay, the authority figure reacted the way that they should have. And in this case, he isn't. So how do you, I mean, how do you ever find somebody for anything they ever do again? I mean, it's just, there's no consistency. So that's what makes it happen.
I genuinely think we're beyond that point anyway. I mean, the guy who got choked up by a plastic bag is sitting there at the commentary table, and nothing came with that.
Yeah,
he was
Moxley
still the
showed up to work and still gets paid. Yeah,
with the world championship. Like, we have gone past the point where Tony Khan's authority means anything. Nothing you do in AEW has consequences. So I almost like ignore it now at this point. Yeah, whatever they're going to do. I mean, but at least, and I'm almost scared to say it, at least there's nothing extra they can do. There isn't another level, right? Please.
Oh, you know what? No, they can pretend to behead somebody. Hold up like a fake beheading to try to scare. I mean, that actually, it'd be so obviously fake that I don't know. I'm trying on the fly here to think what will they think? What could they do to prove you wrong, Chris? That there's nowhere further to go. And I, and by the way, nobody's doing this. Hopefully nobody's sitting at home or, watching this or listening to this, thinking it. But just because you're naming other really, really, really stupid things that WWE did, that TNA did, that AEW has done, WCW back in the day, I'm sorry, we don't go, well, something really dumb was done, so that resets the standard for what's okay. No, those were dumb, and we were outraged and critical of it because it was stupid, it was hack, it was over the top, it was ineffective, it was narrative structure breaking, and we're going to continue to do it just because there's been way too many instances of it being done. And almost all of them have been done since the Attitude Era. Like the Monday Night War and the competition and the desperation is kind of what led to it. There was an angle in Memphis with Eddie Gilbert and Jerry Lawler with Eddie trying to run over Jerry with a car. And that was like a huge deal circa, was it 89? I don't know, roughly that, 88. That was like a huge deal. Like somebody just speeding a car towards someone because they're like, well, he could have killed him and that's going too far. And it's like, that's nothing now. And I mean, I get wrestling, it broadened in terms of the way we tell stories and the out of the ring stuff, but that was such a big deal at that time, and now nobody would even think twice. And I mean, I'm fine with that. Anyway, go ahead.
It's the concept of power creep. I mean, I play Magic the Gathering because I am a giant nerd, and that game's been around for over 30 years, and we're starting to see now that the cards that are printed now make the cards that were printed 30 years ago look ridiculously underpowered. Mm-hmm. Wrestling has pretty much done the same thing. I had a thought the other day about the genesis of the WrestleMania moment and how that has led to WWE's current fascination with viral moments. And I don't think that that's an accidental link. With AEW, it seems like they're just always trying to one-up their own ridiculousness.
Yep.
And I don't see how they can, because they've already gone about as far as you can go without just doing live murder on TV.
Yep.
And I don't know, maybe we have ourselves to blame with all the complaining we did about the fire sparkling and the crackers when the firecrackers when they did the exploding ring match, and or the obvious crash pads on all of Jericho's falls off the top of a cage. Who knows? But
I'm not taking any blame.
Me neither. But I think if people are going to complain about things not looking realistically dangerous, this is what we're going to end up getting.
Yeah. All right. Let's pause, introduce ourselves, and then we will put some chat comments up on the screen about our conversation here on MGF, and then we got more to talk about. There's a really, really good tag team match on the show, and yeah, definitely some good things to talk about here too. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter. Here's the latest copy, talking about the new ESPN deal. And I've been publishing it since the late 1980s when I was a high school student, doing it as a hobby, and graduated college, and with after studying journalism and economics, and ended up having it be my income ever since. This has been my full-time gig, my full-time job for a very long time. And I appreciate everybody's support over the years, supporting what I and the team that I've assembled and all the people who contributed over the years. So a big thank you to you if you're joining us new, and a bigger thank you to you if you've been along, as some of you have, for decades, following our brand of wrestling coverage. And that includes our live post shows here on the PWTorch YouTube channel after Raw on Mondays, Dynamite Wednesdays, and SmackDown on Fridays. Also includes our live post shows hosted by Brandon LeClaire, usually, including the Sunday, and sometimes Greg Parks after PLEs and pay-per-views. We got a choice to make next month. How are we going to handle that? We'll cover AEW out of principle, and more reasons. But Brock Lesnar's return match, and we're not going to be able to cover it live with we're going to split our. Anyway, that's a whole other story.
Oh no, how horrible!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, so anyway, yeah. So join us after SmackDown, and also join us after Forbidden Door this Sunday. Here live on the YouTube channel, or if you're listening to us on the podcast side of things, which is a vast majority of you. We've been doing podcasting for over 20 years now. Yeah, like 22 years now. I've been doing podcasting and free podcasting for over 15. We started off just doing VIP exclusive podcasts, but if you're listening to us there, be sure you're subscribing to the Wade Keller red and blue logo and the PWTorch Daily Cast and VIP for sample. feeds on your podcast app. Just search PWTorch and Wade Keller to get both. You can join in the conversation in the chat room if you're watching us live on the YouTube channel. You can also email us at wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com if you want to be part of the show. That's also a way for you to be part of the show, even if you don't watch us live on YouTube. That's a way for you to contribute questions or comments that can be part of the show. And if you're a VIP member or Patreon supporter, you can chime in with your with a live call. You can turn your camera off if you want to be audio only, like our Blog Talk Radio days, or be on camera and contribute that way. And so I think that's most of the business other than introducing tonight's co-host. Chris Lansdell, PWTorch contributor. He has been covering the G1 tournament as part of a group effort for this for PWTorch.com's coverage of the G1. Chris, thank you so much for that, and welcome. Yes, you get to hear English commentary while watching wrestling finally after a while.
Yeah. Fortunately for the G1, it is you do have live English coverage on most of it. But 80 hours of wrestling on top of everything else in about a 4-week span is a lot. And it was good to have some less condensed action, because it's all go in New Japan, match. An interesting G1. I'm sure we'll get to it in a little bit. AEW doesn't seem to think it exists. But a very surprising winner, and a final. Well, actually, the final 3 matches were all excellent, but the final, I think, surprised a lot of people, especially with some of the fan reactions. But I'm sure we'll get on to all of that when I get to rant a bit.
Excellent. Yes. All right. Well, let's shift back to conversation about the segment that. And by the way, I was a few minutes behind watching, and Sean Radican texted me. He's like, "Did you see the MJF segment?" I'm like, "Oh God." I was hoping it was good. He didn't tell me it wasn't. Like, I was hoping it's like this great, fired up within the dotted lines that wrestling should stay when you're as talented. And I say this all the time: when you're as talented as MJF, like that's why, like, it's just so disappointing. Like, he doesn't have to do this hack stuff to be over. Like Roddy Piper, like, watch his stuff. He didn't need to do this, in his prime. Michael Hayes didn't have to do this in his prime. Like, just the great heels, and it's not it's timeless. Like, when you can cut a good heel promo, and you can just like be efficient, and there's little things you can do to just get heel heat, and you just break the wall of suspension of disbelief with this stuff, and it's disappointing. I'm disappointed in MJF. I'm disappointed in Hangman Page. I'm disappointed in Tony Khan for not seeing this for what it is. And if they think there's precedent in the last 20 years, 25 years to justify it, I think they're missing the point. That you shouldn't copy bad stuff. So what's the chat saying? Chris Johnson in the chat says, there is an opportunity for AEW right now. I'd love a great alternative to WWE, but they just can't stop with the stupid stuff like gasoline. It's so stupid. God damn, he says. Fan Blast says, nobody has any instincts for the business. Where are the smart people? Between hearing voices with Bailey and this fire crap, does anyone know believable structure anymore?
No.
Derek Mitchell. So MJF was going to light a Mark Briscoe on fire on live TV? If I were Hangman Page, I would have called his bluff. Yeah, I mean, that's the part. We're supposed to think Hangman's a hero for giving up 3 things that MJF demanded because he saved Mark Briscoe's life. And it's like, nobody thinks that. Lady B says, well, WWE has controlled the media conversation for the last 2 to 3 weeks. AEW had a fun but not industry-moving show. Chris Johnson on the Hangman thing says, it made Hangman look dumb as hell for believing he would do it. Chris Johnson adds, WWE is as boring as ever right now, and AEW tries to do everything outrageous under the sun on a monthly basis. Andrew H. says, Tony's leaning on murder as creative is incredible. Chris Johnson adds, AEW has so much potential, but they step on their own junk over and over again. Fan Blast concurs, the Attitude Era has done more damage than it ever did good. Bart Ty says, wrestling today really lacks quality control. Ramen Noodle says, not exactly alone. The show was mostly fire, in my opinion. MJF stuff was unnecessary, though. And Fan Blast just says, yeah, it's worth harping on this. I'm about done with AEW, and it's over stuff like this. So, yeah, I mean, not a lot of pushback. A little bit from Zach Barber, but the chat room is tending to that sufficiently. I don't need to dive on top of that pile up. Yeah, King of Strong Style just said, so stupid. How can MJF sign a contract already changed, especially after kidnapping? Zach, we're not ignoring you. I brought up your name. What do you call? What do you want us to say? You're saying we shouldn't make as big of a deal out of this, but we've made our case why it is. Everybody in the chat agrees it is. So I don't really know. I mean,
some things are not worth defending. Like,
no,
even if you don't want to do the chair around the ankle thing because it's not good enough, but he could have at the end, MJF could have said, "You idiot, that was just water. Do you think I would actually set fire to someone on live TV?"
Yep.
And actually, I think that would have been a heck of a lot better than any of the other options, because nobody gets mad about throwing water over somebody. But they had to leave it at that, and it's.
Yeah, and if MJF had said, "Haha, I tricked you into all this," and then he just he could have drank from the gasoline tank and said, "It's just water. What do you think I'm a fool?" But the thing is we don't give them that benefit of the doubt because they burned a house down. They put a plastic bag over somebody's head. They put a syringe through a cheek. This isn't a company that thinks that step is necessary, and you don't really look for it to happen because they don't think that kind of out is helpful. Because they think the heat is that MJF was going to set Mark Briscoe on fire. Like that is their mindset. So to conjure up a way to save it is to disregard the mindset, the completely broken backwards mindset that creates this angle in the first place, which is, why didn't anyone think of doing this? Well, because most people are smarter and know better and they're more mature and they're not fourth graders going, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Like, this is fourth graders sitting around fantasy booking wrestling, and it gets to be on national television, and it's crazy.
We all know that wrestling is scripted. We all know that. And I think Tony Khan loses sight of the fact that because we know it's scripted, he can do anything and we know it's not real. But that breaks the immersion. We all go in wanting to be convinced that it's real, even though we know it isn't. And then when you do this nonsense that can't possibly be real, it takes us out of the world that you're trying to create. It takes us out of that immersion that people have worked for 50 years to create and to master. And yes, the Attitude Era and the era of reality has largely ruined the ability to convince people all the time. But people like us who've been watching wrestling for 30, 40 years, we want to be convinced. We're willing to be tricked to a degree. You just can't get stupid with it.
Yep. Hack, desperate, undisciplined. As far as ignoring Zach, Adam Kidd says, Zach is going to Zach. He likes the attention, even when he's so incredibly wrong. I don't know. I think Zach's sincere. I don't think he's doing it for attention. Kane Play Stuff, welcome to the chat. Says, I'm really low on this show, but I've been high the past couple of weeks and thought AEW was going in a great direction. The MJF stuff and the tag team draw finish was awful. I'm going to defend that, by the way.
Yeah.
So Zach Barber chimes in with a super chat, which I by rule cannot ignore, unless it's profane or off topic. So what exactly is this narrative structure you always speak of? What are the parameters, Chris?
That's a whole podcast, Zach. I'm sorry, brother. Just narrative structure. You tell a story by giving us protagonists with which we can identify, who we can get behind, who we can love, and antagonists whose sole goal is to ruin their lives. And then you give us a believable conflict between them, which fits within the rules of the world you've created, but also doesn't stretch the boundaries of the real world so that we can stay immersed in this world that you've created. Those are the parameters. In this world, we are to believe that once you step inside an 18 by 18 ring, you can do whatever you want to each other and you're not going to get arrested for it. Fine.
Well, if you stab someone in the heart with a knife, you will. I mean, I get your point, but I want to clarify. Yeah.
And even then, sometimes outside the rules of the wrestling match, we are to believe that sometimes you can use a weapon that might be hanging around the ringside. And although that will lose you the match, it doesn't escalate to assault. Okay, we can stretch to that. And sometimes people fight backstage. Well, that happens in real life too. That happens in sports. We can stretch to that. When you start bringing outside things into it, you run the risk of breaking that immersion, of breaking that wall. And those are the parameters that we don't want to break. There are sometimes you can stretch it and it'll work. Sometimes you can bring in people from outside, family members who might have a tie to the wrestling business, or people who've been on the air, or you can talk about somebody's past working history or something. There are ways you can do it. But there is no world where pouring gasoline on someone and holding a lighter next to them doesn't break those parameters. There is no sports or wrestling company in the world where that's a normal thing.
Yep.
And it doesn't make sense. And it takes you completely out of whatever world we're trying to be created for.
Yeah, the narrative structure is, can everything that happens within that world be, can you apply everything that happens and the consequences of it in a logical way? Can all these things coexist in a world without indiscriminate, arbitrary alterations to our reactions to it? And we're supposed to get worked up over somebody taking yanking our mask off, or loading their sling, or yanking somebody off the ring apron. And oh no, you're kicked out of ringside. You interfered. You want us to get worked up over that? But how can we, when MJF gets to, threaten to set somebody on fire, and the show just moves on, and MJF still gets his title match in a few days, as if, oh, that was clever. I'm surprised Tony Schiavone or, any announcer didn't just go, oh, how resourceful of MJF. He sure knew how to leverage his situation into getting what he wants. So the narrative structure, to answer Zach's question, is pro wrestling is a simulated sport. And as Chris, you said, it stretches the boundaries of what you would see in real sports. That's part of the fun. But when you stretch it so far and there aren't proportionate consequences to that, it makes a mockery of everything. And the manifestation of it, in a way, it's not the best example ever, but tonight we saw Kill Switch. We saw Luchasaurus come back, and the crowd's chanting for him after he chokeslams Copeland. And the whole story is he's a villain with this obnoxious Mother Wayne and Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian. And they're like, oh, cool, we're here for a moment. Wrestling has become about moments. Yep. And in order to get people outraged over what's happening, you need to have a consistent lane you drive in creatively. And if you're at a play or if you're watching a movie and you can gasp and react to something, but it only works if it fits. Like if you're watching a slasher horror movie, you have a different reaction to things than if you're watching some, hijinks, I don't know, like 9 to 5, or there's a mean boss. It's like, well, yeah, but he's not raping anybody. He's just being sexist. But in wrestling, it's like 9 to 5 would include rape and terrorism and arson. It's like, no, like wrestling doesn't need to go there. That's why it's hack. So, all right. All right. So let's see. I thought I was going to add something else. Let me see in the chat. There's a couple things. Well, first of all, as Adam Kidd says, what's great about this community is we can all speak our minds and respectfully disagree in terms of what's going on. Goodfellas says, yeah, I like Zach's passion. I don't agree, but I support it. Ramen Noodle says, I don't think this breaks any narrative structure because AEW goes to this level all the time. It's on brand. It's how do I say that?
Canonical.
Canonical, thank you. It's in canon. How can we still be so outraged at this point? Okay. Oh, I'm going to take this one, Chris. Ramen, if someone breaks into my house and they're arrested for ransacking my house, and I'm outraged and I press charges, and then 3 weeks later they do it again, and they're arrested and I'm outraged, and then 3 weeks later they do it again, I'm like, well, now it's part of canon. This guy gets to break into my house. Like, come on. You're justifying absolute utter stupidity by saying, but it's precedent setting, so therefore because we do this and we ignore the consequences in a way that completely breaks the immersion, there's no logic. It's not defensible storytelling. This is not sophisticated ways to tell a story. And pro wrestling I know people, it's pro wrestling sophisticated. What are you talking about? Well, sophisticated means, do you go further than you need to or not? Do you tell a story where the reactions of everybody can be consistently applied based on the severity of what happens? And that's not happening here. So no, you don't get to say because they've done stupid hack over the top stuff before that now we accept it as part of canon. No. Oh, Chris, go ahead.
I don't even have outrage for it. I'm just tired of it.
I have outrage for people defending it. That's my outrage.
But there is no defending it. Like, even Zach is not saying it was good. I don't know why he's still fighting against it when he admits that it wasn't a good angle.
Yeah.
It's dumb. They've done it and worse before. They're probably going to do it again. And I think Tony Khan enjoys the attention that anything gets, even if it's people saying how stupid something was. I don't want to give him even that satisfaction. It was dumb. We've spent quite a bit of time talking about how dumb it was.
Yep.
And I don't think there's anything really more to say on it. Honestly, it's just, why are we still doing this nonsense?
And then 15 minutes later, we're still talking about it. Well,
Yeah,
hopefully
exactly.
not. Hopefully not. I will throw this up, though. King of Strong Style says, this is a problem with AEW fans. They can never admit bad booking. Just excuses. This is why the fan base isn't growing. I don't know if Tony Khan, by the way, Chris, does this just for attention. I think he does it because he isn't thinking. He grew up, I mean, he's younger than us. He grew up watching wrestling that, I don't know how old. I don't know. Maybe.
I think he's exactly the same age as me within a few weeks. I think he's 46. I'm just checking.
No, he's younger than. Is he? I guess maybe he is by now. It seems like yesterday.
No, 43. He's 43.
Okay.
Well, he will be at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But like I was on RSPW with him.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, he probably remember me because that's who he is as a human. But yeah, like
3 to 4 years. You know what else, Chris? Sorry for interrupting. 3 to 4 years can make a difference here, though, because you either saw the territory system, the great bookers who were kind of aging out in certain ways, but they had structure and standards and sort of guideposts that they followed, and you could miss that based on the age difference between you and Tony. Yeah,
I mean, I started watching wrestling with AWA, WCCW, and then GWF. So those were my introductions, and I think Tony might have just missed that because GWF was like the amalgamation of WCW or WCCW and a couple of other promotions. I think Crockett might have been involved in that as well at some point.
Yeah,
my memory's a bit fuzzy, but that was right around when Tony would have got in, and yeah, he missed out on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and some of this is Tony just greenlighting other people's ideas, or does he think this is good? Good stuff. And I'm not quite ready to commit to either. I mean, obviously he thinks it's okay, but I wonder if this is just MJF going, okay, Tony, I'm excited. And Hangman's like, let's do it. And he's like, all right, I got bigger battles to fight and all that. I don't know.
There are people backstage from some of the people I've spoken to. There are people working for AEW who Tony doesn't even give them input. They tell him what they're doing, and that he goes with it. I know Hangman is not one of those. I don't know about MJF.
Yeah. Well, Ramen Noodle says, if you think it sucks, say it loud and proud. I've never faulted someone for their opinion. This is all subjective. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're talking about outrage over pro wrestling. And Rachel says, I think AEW sucks. And then
cool.
three smiley faces. Bart Ty says, TK needs to work on some quality control. Goodfella 1422 says, the narrative in AEW's creative room would be an interesting listen. They got in their discussion. And let's see, Ramen Noodle says, I'm saying that it's understandable that TK, a relative newcomer in the small community of narrative creators in wrestling, would want some room to stretch the limits of wrestling in his image. The thing is I'm fine stretching the limits. Just stretch the limits in a way that makes some sense, where everyone can react appropriately. It's the whole point. If heels are doing bad things, the goal is to get heat on the heels, so people are more sympathetic and want to see the baby faces win. For that to work, you need everything else around it consistently treating it as if that is kind of the holy grail of the code of conduct. You have to have the good people, the announcers, shaming heels for cheating and making fans feel like that win doesn't count, that they shouldn't be proud of themselves. You can't have commentators, and they've done it for a long time, justifying heels' actions and praising them for it and going, wow, that was resourceful. I mean, both WWE and AEW do it, and other companies do it. It's a default change of the culture. It's not expanding the boundaries in some modern, forward-leaning way. It's just taking something that is a timeless, effective way to tell a story that, by the way, every other genre adheres to, or they are held accountable and don't last. And it's just not controversial to say someone shouldn't threaten to set someone on fire with gasoline and get their way and not face consequences. That just doesn't work. Just doesn't work. And nobody's buying it. So it's not even effective. It's much more effective to stay, within a realm of believability where you wouldn't think, well, why is the boss allowing that? And Moxley's gone there, Hangman's gone there, Swerve's gone there. MJF has gone there. So
I would love to know if there was a single gasp in the building when they pulled that angle out. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I doubt anyone was shocked or believed that anything was coming from it.
Yeah. That's. I mean, we can sit here and explain and do granular detail on why this doesn't make sense. It's hack. It's bad. The fact that it's ineffective, it just doesn't work, makes it such a waste of time.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
It's just unless you think trending on Twitter is the definition of being is successful at your job, and it's not. And getting likes and hearts in your social media isn't the sign of a successful life either, or a good day, or whatever. I mean, but I do feel, and I'm not alone, that is too much of how wrestlers and promoters keep score these days. As Fanblast says, if championships promos and being the best isn't enough, what are we even doing here? I mean, that's when you said that earlier. Like, this is a world title match with your top babyface and your most talented centerpiece franchise heel, and you can't just tell the story without that. Like,
yeah,
jeez. Andrew H says Wade in this platform is way more entertaining than the actual shows. Well, thank you, Andrew H. All right, Chris. Forbidden Door, international in nature. Yes, exactly. And what have you thought of the New Japan overlap in the build to this? Take it away.
If you need to go get like a tea or something, this is a really good time. It's all stupid. None of it makes any sense. They have completely run this concept into the ground. If you're going to do the Forbidden Door concept, we need to have matches and situations where we believe that these are either dream matches, which I think we've run out of those, or there is some real danger that one company's titles will end up in the hands of another company's wrestlers. If you look at the title matches, there is not a single one of those where I feel the title is going to change hands. We had a triple threat match made for the tag titles, still no New Japan improvement. You've got Okada and Swerve. It's going to be a great match, no New Japan. No CMLL either. You've got the world title, no involvement from another company. This show was always about bringing the best from each company together and having them face off in matches that we're not going to see otherwise. With the amount of interplay between the promotions now, that has lost a lot of its novelty. And people don't talk about it enough, but the New Japan AEW relationship feels an awful lot like the WWE TNA one, where New Japan is constantly getting the short end of the stick. Here's a perfect example. The G1 just finished, which is the longest running tournament in professional wrestling. It has been in one form or another ongoing since 1974, with a 1-year gap in 1990 that they missed. It is the most prestigious tournament. Some of the names that have won it read like a who's who of the last 20 years. AJ Styles, Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada. That tournament was won by Konosuke Takeshita, who was where on the show tonight? Was it even mentioned that he won the G1? Don Callis had a segment with a promo for Kazuchika Okada and did not even mention that his other protege has now won the G1 and has a world title shot coming up against Zack Sabre Jr., which, by the way, Nigel McGuinness only had to win a 4-way to get and not go through 18 days of wrestling in a tournament to win. No wonder New Japan has been incredibly angry about that whole thing. This is the go-home show for the pay-per-view. And you don't mention that your wrestler has a title shot against the other company's champion. You don't even bring it up. I would be shocked if 1 million people are watching Dynamite. I'd be shocked if 250,000 even know what the G1 is. I can give you 45 seconds of a G1 rundown. It's a tournament that has been in its current incarnation since about 1991. The champion, the world champion, is almost always part of it. The winner of the tournament gets a world title shot. If the champion wins the tournament, he gets to pick his own challenger for the Wrestle Kingdom event. That has not happened since the year 2000. Konosuke Takeshita won this title despite working in 2 other companies as well. He's an AEW contracted talent, and he beat some of the biggest names in New Japan on his way to the title. Done. That tells you more than they bothered to tell you on Dynamite tonight. And then you go to this cage match. All right, so let's look at this cage match. First of all, Will Ospreay should not be in any wrestling ring right now. He's about to go and have surgery. Why is he in this match? I get it. He's English, and Forbidden Door is in London. Fantastic. Are we expected to believe that Tony Khan is okay risking one of his biggest investments in a cage match? That doesn't make any sense. You put Hiroshi Tanahashi, who is 6 months away from ending his career, 5 months actually, in a cage match. There have been 2 cage matches in Japan in the last 25 years. He hasn't been in either of them. He is not a cage match wrestler. He's not a hardcore wrestler. He's a white meat babyface. That's what he is. And you're putting him in this match with no heat behind it whatsoever. Then you put Gabe Kidd against him. Gabe Kidd just had a match with Hiroshi Tanahashi, which was one of the most emotional things I've seen on New Japan, where Gabe Kidd broke down in tears, bowing to Tanahashi after he beat him, because Tanahashi saved Gabe Kidd's life when he was stuck in Japan over the pandemic, struggling with depression, suicidal. Tanahashi saved his life by calling him every day to check on him. And now they're facing each other in a cage match. Then you add in the Young Bucks, who are affiliated with Jack Perry. Jack Perry is a member of the House of Torture, who are the mortal enemies of the War Dogs, which is where Gabe Kidd belongs. You also had a match between the Young Bucks and the War Dogs on a New Japan USA show where they got really heated and into each other. So now Gabe Kidd is wrestling with these guys. You have Kota Ibushi, who left New Japan in a storm of controversy and accused a bunch of their executives of adultery on Twitter, and is now facing off against the company president in a cage match in another country. It just blows the mind. What are they doing?
We talk about canon. I mean, it's selective where New Japan is canon and where it's not. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, I talk about this promo all the time as the reason that Gabe Kidd doesn't get any promotion or push on AEW. Yeah. He cut a scathing promo in the ring on a New Japan show. I want to say it was Dominion last year, where he basically accused AEW or said to Tanahashi, why don't you just walk into Tony Khan's office, pull down your pants and turn around and say, do your worst. And that could not have rubbed people the right way. And he's got a bit of a potty mouth. And I'm pretty sure that's why he doesn't get any sort of background or anything. He's just the mercenary from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Mm-hmm. He's one of their brightest stars as a foreigner. And I would be shocked if he's not in the world title picture in the next 2 years.
Zach chimed in, says, Chris, sorry to interrupt, but Gabe Kidd has already teamed with the Bucks at Double or Nothing. What say you?
That wasn't any less ridiculous then either. It still doesn't make sense.
But it's precedent.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it all right.
Yeah.
So the bigger point is that he's facing off against the guy that he literally just bowed at his feet in tears saying, you saved my life. And now they're facing off in a cage match. Not just a regular match, though. Like a regular match I could buy.
Yeah. And the announcers could introduce that into canon and go, well, this is awkward. You know, but they're probably going to stay away from each other. There's a lot going on here. Well, will one of them side with you? I don't know. I mean, it could be at least a passing mention.
I don't understand why we haven't got any of House of Torture on Forbidden Door, because they actually would make a really good transition over to the US style. They are US style heels, and that's why everybody who watches New Japan hates them with the fire of 1,000 suns. But they would work in AEW. Yeah. I do want to mention, though, in Ospreay's promo, I mean, we all knew where that segment was going, but he did mention that he's going to have surgery. Was that known? I don't remember hearing that he was due for surgery before now. So that's an interesting...
I think the presentation of this has left people wondering how much of this is storyline. He's attributing it to the Death Riders. So like it's enough storyline where I don't know that. I mean, my sense is people haven't fully figured out, is this, because when he ran back and made the save and then he got added to the cage match, the feeling is, okay, this is either terribly irresponsible, he's going to do almost nothing in the cage match, or he's going to do something in the cage match and he shouldn't, and it could be a tragedy, because the next issue is very serious. I think we're to the point based on the way, if you extrapolate what we know and what he said on TV, it's a serious situation. And I mean, I'm sorry, but like the way to, I mean, I get you can defend the notion that I care so much about getting revenge on Jon Moxley that this is good. I'm going to give it my all, and then I'm going to go under the knife and get this fixed. But the way he talks about, I never thought I'd be one of those people who, you know, is human. And I walk, you know, and every 40, 50, 60-year-old wrestler tells the 20-year-olds who are doing a bunch of 30-year-olds sometimes who are doing all these crazy spots inefficiently with diminishing returns, needlessly dangerous moves when they're safer moves that are just as spectacular to the average viewer, but they take pride in how dangerous they are, and then they defend them afterwards. They always say it's going to catch up to you. Your career's going to be shortened. And, you know, there's the old saying, there's a style you work to get over, and then there's a new style you work once you're over. Yeah. Another alteration of it is there's a style you work to get noticed on the indie scene and to get a fan following, but then there's a style you work when you get hired and you have that fan following. But sometimes you take too many chances, you do too many things recklessly, and you end up not getting to reap the benefits of a lot of years of big time money because you're working a style that is the smart style to work. And by the way, people can be critical of it, of WWE, when there's wrestlers, you know, Roman Reigns is an example, or, you know, John Cena and you know, these top people who don't do a lot of moves. Cody's not Will Ospreay in terms of how exciting and athletic he is, or Kenny Omega, but the crowds are buying into everything they're doing. You know, I mean, well, you know what I mean? I mean, that's a broad, but like, there's so many examples of what they do working when they're wrestling a safe style. So Ospreay cutting a babyface promo to get you excited to participate in watching him wrestle a match that's ill-advised, that could lead him to having to retire early, living in pain, being in a wheelchair like Dynamite Kid. I don't know. He's pulling at our heartstrings with this. Like, he's not trying to hide it or downplay it, but at the same time, we're supposed to feel then good about cheering him on. And then it's the Bryan Danielson thing where he really likes making people think something more legitimate is happening than just the storytelling of a match. And I disagree with that. I don't think there's a lot to respect about Bryan Danielson, but there's things I disagree with him philosophically on. And that's one of them. I don't like when he pretends something is more real than everything else. It was my criticism of the CM Punk pipe bomb promo, and other wrestlers are critical of it. Well, if I got to break the fourth wall, I'd be over too. Maybe I wouldn't deliver it as good as Punk, but let's not subtract that from the equation of why this worked. And it's not this, you know, it's not just a genius promo. It had the benefit of going outside the bounds. Same with Danielson in a match. When you scare people because they think you're really hurt, you've completely ruined selling the rest of the night for everybody else who follows you, because that's the fake stuff. Anyway, so multiple, you know, things branch off from this, but it is Ospreay's promo, Chris, was a manifestation of some of that. It's the mixed feelings you have when you're concerned for somebody in real life and he wants you to feel sympathy for him, but also buy the pay-per-view and expect to enjoy seeing him take bumps and take chances.
And I think with Ospreay, it's an extra level of worry, because I know for a fact at least 4 senior people have told him over the years, you've got to slow down. I mean, he's been open about Jericho. I know Christopher Daniels has done it. I know Dean Malenko has spoken to him. And I know Jody Fleisch, actually, the UK indie standout from before there was a lot of people traveling from the UK, has had words with him about watching his high-flying style. And to a degree, he has toned it down. I'm probably going to get heat from this from various people, but I miss the days where the only time anyone kicked out of a finisher was at WrestleMania. Like, a finisher was the end of the match. That's it. Sometimes at WrestleMania, someone would kick out of one. Now a finisher doesn't finish anything. I can probably name 3 finishers that actually finish matches now across all of professional wrestling, and it's sad.
And you know what? I can accept that people kick out of finishers. I mean, that can be in the realm of the rules of engagement of how we think a match is believable. It'd be kind of weird if nobody kicked out of finishers except at WrestleMania and that pattern was there. I get what you're saying because it's been so abused, but I can live with sometimes it takes 2 tries or sometimes, but it should be the key to that justification or you know, approval of it is it should be a big deal. It should fit the moment. It shouldn't be about trying to get an extra star in some rating system because of the density and quantity of high spots and the physical sacrifice. It should be because it was a key moment, and it's the discipline of not overdoing it that makes it effective when you do it, and that's gone. Now it's just spamming finishers.
Yeah.
And it comes across like wrestlers who spam finishers think, who are all the suckers who aren't doing this? Look at how over it is. And they don't understand. It's like title changes. The late 90s into the 2000s, the idea was, you had some, I don't like naming names. I mean, I do, but I just don't want to even give attention to it. But there are bookers who are like doing title changes left and right. And part of it was a product of the Monday Night War and the competition and, the destruction of worrying about minute-by-minute ratings instead of the long arc of securing your success over the long run. That was a product of the Monday Night War hysteria. But the reason title changes had any value for the people who abused them by changing titles all the time is because the generations before them did not abuse them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of why there's like norms of how the United States government worked. There were norms of behavior, and there wasn't really an enforcement mechanism, but everybody abided by it because we're in this together. And that all changed. That all changed 9 years ago. And so there's like, there's a price you pay when you just sort of cash in on the discipline of others and think they were suckers for following the rules or not doing title changes constantly. Because they got a pop, they popped a rating. Well, you end up with diminishing returns. People get numb to them. And then you get crowds cheering a heel like Luchasaurus returning tonight and chanting his name because they've been conditioned. And there's people emailing me going, oh, the Bailey thing, that didn't break my immersion. And I'm like, you don't know what immersion is. I mean, honestly, that's my thought. You don't know how good it could be if you watched a show that didn't have stuff like that. It's such a higher level of enjoyment of pro wrestling when you get pulled into that world. But you were in a state of accepting something so inferior to that you watch a segment where you can hear Bailey's words and you think, well, that's creative and it's different and entertaining, so I'm okay with like it's. And I know, Chris, from something you said earlier, you agree with me, like that. That isn't, if you're okay with it, that is not an example that does not prove it's okay. What it says is the product's been dumbed down enough that your standards are low and you actually aren't fully enjoying the product in a way that is a peak fan experience anymore.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Finisher spam is just an automatic way to lose a rating star from me, as anyone who's read my recaps would know. There are times where kicking out of finishes works, especially if it's early in the match. I get it. But that's not what we get. And there is an art to telling a progressive story in a wrestling match. And that's the kind of wrestling match I thoroughly enjoy, where they build the violence, if you like. Their moves get progressively more and more aggressive until you get to the point where the finisher does put them away. I do want to talk about the Luchasaurus return, though. I think, first of all, Nick Wayne's promo has come along miles.
He is so much better.
Like that kid is, if he carries on this trajectory, he's still in his early 20s. This guy is going to be something. That was such a powerfully delivered promo. He got his volume right. He varied it. He looked serious. He didn't go over the top with his threats. I'm going to end your career is perfect. That's exactly the level that we want from a heel. Because we believe that that's a genuine motivation someone could have. The return of Luchasaurus, it made sense in the storyline. I think anybody gone a year, especially anybody who was popular, who's gone a year, is going to get cheered, regardless. But when you look at it, the last time we saw him, he was having the conflicted feelings, helping Christian Cage win was it the Casino Gauntlet in London? Yeah, it was. So he was on the verge of turning anyway, and now he's come back and he's still aligned. He's now aligned against Christian because he doesn't want to be around Christian, but that makes him a heel right now. I don't know how long that's going to last. They needed to find someone to throw into this match, and the old adage of if you're going to change the match, make it something better. I don't think it'll be better in the ring. Excuse me. But I do think the return of Luchasaurus after so long, when people were starting to wonder if he was ever going to come back, it does qualify as a nice surprise. And I actually enjoyed that whole segment, except for Copeland stealing MJF's line and proving that he was carried by 5 other people during his heyday.
So Zach Barber says, Wade, he's been gone a year. Of course, he was going to get cheered. So there's a couple things. Yes, true. but I'm not disputing that. My point is that's illustrative of that's a consequence of not having people, while they're watching wrestling, getting rewarded for buying into the world that they create, the realm that the wrestlers exist in. It is all about moments. Bartai, again, wrestling now is all about manufactured moments. So you're backing up my point. Like, it has not always been that way. Fans, and it is not a consequence of society changing or in a quote evolution. It's a consequence of sloppy storytelling, undisciplined storytelling that fans react by going, oh, this is a moment. There's a wrestler who's back. They don't remember the details of where he was. They're just excited to be there when this happened, a viral moment or a memorable moment. I was there when. But if you don't do segments in wrestling where you can literally hear thoughts going on in someone's head, and it's just so stupid, and you're not suffocating people and burning houses down, and you have announcers who are consistently they are consistent in their reactions to the angles that are taking place in the ring and the original genesis and intent of those types of angles, then they'll be happy to see Luchasaurus, but they'll be wrapped up in being upset that Adam Copeland just got attacked. And so what you have to do if you're Tony Khan is be aware of that and then change how you bring someone back. Let them get the pop out of their system. And I know it's like there's a sacrifice. Oh, it's not a surprise. Well, is it worth the surprise of having him come back in that context if he's going to be cheered and it just unravels any kind of buy-in that people had in good feelings for Copeland and Christian? Chris?
In normal circumstances, I would probably agree with that, but we don't know how much notice they had of this injury and how quickly they had to pull this together. And I do think they tried. Like, they had him come out and immediately chokeslam two guys that have been getting loud cheers. I don't know how much time, how else they could have done it to avoid him getting cheered.
You could have him be part of the promo.
Yeah.
I mean, have him have Nick. I mean, this is really reformatting the show, and I hate to be too specific with my suggestions because there's a lot of reasons they do and don't do things. So I'm not blind to that. But you asked the question. You could have a segment where on the stage they're interviewed by whoever, and Nick Wayne and Mother Wayne go, someone's back, and just lead with the story instead of bearing the lead that Nick is hurt. Have Kip and Mother Wayne go, Nick's hurt. We're going to hear from him later, or airs promo before that, and go, we got reinforcements, and don't make it a surprise and let people pop for him there. But then when he actually is attacking Copeland, they got it out of their system. I would be in favor of adjusting for that so you don't have those immersion breaking moments.
I think they did it here to avoid that pop at the pay-per-view, though. Right, because
sure.
You could have just brought him out then, and it's much better to have it on Dynamite. Let him do the choke slam, or maybe on Collision they have him cut a promo if he's actually going to talk, and then he will get booed, hopefully. Unfortunately, he's teaming with an Englishman in England, and Kip Sabian hasn't wrestled in about a year since he was on the last UK pay-per-view, and I still think he's one of the most underrated guys. I think it's okay. I think with this one, I'm willing to give him that leeway because of the circumstances and because I don't think people really care about Copeland outside of his theme song. Well,
yeah. I was thinking when he came out wearing the Rated R Superstar shirt, and I wrote a little analysis in my TV report, and then I just deleted it. It's like, it's not important enough. I mean, it's just a thought I had, but he's still wearing a Rated R Superstar t-shirt, and it's sort of like Heartbreak Kid. It's like, well, it's just sort of what we call him, but it doesn't apply anymore. And how long would you could be a wrestling fan for a very long time, but if you didn't look back or read, back on, you would have no idea why he's called. There's nothing about him that's rated R. and the downside of it does kind of feel like he's wearing his letter jacket at age 32, going back to the high school stadium. Like move forward. Like Chris Jericho, he's probably gonna end up in WWE next year. We've got stories up on that on PWTorch.com, including a poll you should vote in with your thoughts on where you want him to go and how you want him to be used. So please go check that out and vote and read our story on that. And Jericho reinvented himself. Like, he doesn't want people chanting things now that they were chanting 5 years ago because he wants to stay fresh. So part of what makes Copeland ineffective is the sense that, there's not really anything new. He's just kind of a nostalgia act, riding out the momentum. And it's not it's not, it's an okay place to be, to just kind of ride, at his age with what he's been through. But I don't know. I think it's better to come up with something new and not look like you're living off of, a really old, that was very specific to a live sex show on television moment. It's so disconnected from who he is now and so long ago. But anyway,
2006.
Yeah. Yep. So, you could be a wrestling fan for 18 years.
Yep.
You could be 28 years old, start watching wrestling at age 10, and kind of not know why he's called that. And nobody ever, it's like you and New Japan and all this stuff. Like, nobody ever talks about it. It's just like, oh, we know because, Tony Khan just kind of has this assumption. And I don't want to harp. This is like 2 out of 10 in terms of but it just struck me like, it'd be nice if he came back and there was just like, he wasn't just wearing the rated R. Oh, you got the trademark. You know why? Because I don't say it's worthless, but WWE didn't want it. They let it go because it's outdated, and now you're cherishing it. So, anyway.
Having said that, I do think if you take out Copeland trying way too hard to be cool, and I said asshole on live TV, and I said he's my asshole, and made MJF mad in the back. All right, let's just ignore all of that. Nick Wayne, definite highlight. Also, this was the first example of the night of them walking something back and putting a twist into something that we thought was settled. And the fact that the reconciliation hasn't happened yet, they're working together out of convenience. I actually really liked that. I thought that makes a lot of sense. Christian is carrying this whole segment, this whole angle. He shouldn't be okay with everything that's happened. Neither should Copeland, for that matter. But they have a reason to work together for this match and for the match against FTR, which we know is going to happen. So I liked how they handled that, and I thought this was probably one of the smarter things they did for booking on a go-home show. Yeah.
There are compliments to be given on this show. And
Definitely.
one of them is, and I've seen some other opinions on this, but I thought this Christian Copeland thing, I think they've saved it, and the Christian promo 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was, where he just rambled for a really long time. I know there was a point to it. I wasn't sure if he was really being heckled or not at the time, but I think he was pretending he was. But it just went on too long. It just ended up being kind of bad television. It felt like he was kind of losing his place, and I just felt kind of uncomfortable and disconnected from it. But the idea was, now that we're a few weeks removed from it, is, he's going through this inner turmoil. He's, thinking things through. But he didn't just suddenly change. He's not like our truth going, but I'm Ron Killings, and I'm not really naive and fun-loving. I'm serious, and I'm going to, take everything away that made me distinct, and I'm going to want to be respected for the man I am. It's like, well, great in real life, but we're not really that into you anymore, and there's nothing. And now you've just basically said you were just pretending, and we don't like you doing that in the middle of it. Christian didn't do that. Christian didn't walk out and go, I've had fun being a heel. You guys like calling me asshole, but deep down, you know who I am. Like, he didn't do that, and they could have, and I would have been critical of it, and it wouldn't have shocked me or some derivative of that. But no, we're watching it happen. Like, he is true to his character right now. And can we parse it more and go, well, what did they do to each other? Come on, how can they stand in the ring? Yes, and I would say even things they did probably went further than you would want to if you had this moment in mind. But maybe. We'd have to go back and revisit, but it doesn't matter enough to undo this. So I'm fine. I am positive on the craftsmanship and execution of Christian agreeing to team with Copeland. I think they have enemies. You fight side by side with somebody who you've gone to war with. There's a mutual respect there. There's a great history there. It's not exactly the same, but it's like you can fight with your brother all the time, but you're going to come to his defense if someone else is going after him. And I think there's a little bit of that going on here.
Yeah, I thought it was strong, and they tried to do the same thing with MJF later, but we're not revisiting that. Yeah.
So Ramen Noodle says Christian is on a run of a lifetime. Goodfella said Christian was perfect tonight. Someone else had said Christian has shown that he was always the better of the two. I know someone mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm not willing to go that far.
I think there are strengths and weaknesses of both, and I think they're pretty similar. Edge was more main event, had more of a main event vibe to him. No question about it.
But I think Christian had less of a drop off. I think Edge has dropped off a lot, or Copeland, whatever you want to call him. But Christian has managed to stay at a higher level for longer. Then again, Edge did have a much more serious injury to come back from. So there's that. But like on the mic, they were both excellent when they were doing the 10-second pose, 5-second pose, benefit of those with flash photography. That was great. But all of their great matches as a team involved, two of the best people in a very long time at creating movement, and two people who were brought up in a hardcore match scenario. And Edge and Christian just kind of got tacked in there. And then as a singles guy, he had the perfect opponent in Cena. He had the perfect partner in Orton. Like, that whole thing worked out really well for him. And Christian never really got that. Like, he got a title win.
He had to go to TNA to try to establish himself. Yeah,
and it worked, right? But he had a title win out of sympathy against Del Rio. But I will the meme on the internet of him returning to ECW and the commentator going, "It's Christian." Like, yeah, that's basically how we all felt. He has been ridiculous this past year and a half. He's just found a great way to keep generating heel heat. Whenever that it looked like they were finally going to break up that faction, he whipped them back into line, to the point that when the turn did come, it kind of did seem like it wasn't going to happen, and it was coming out of nowhere. And that, I credit him with that. Like, it's been really, really good.
Yep. Totally agree. Adam Kidd says, can we talk about how Christian has always been the better of him and Copeland? So there was a comment that was posted earlier. Okay. The FTR against a Brodito match, really good match. Chris, what'd you think of it as a quality tag team match? And then we'll get to the finish and all that.
I felt it went too long. I understand they wanted to do the draw to get to the triple threat. But it didn't feel like a match that should have gone 30 minutes. Brody King is very entertaining in his style of match, but his style of match in AEW, at least, has not been 30-minute matches. He got a really bad gusher on that cut, and it made everything that happened after that seem too unrealistic. He should not have been able to continue going with that much blood going on. Bandito, highly underrated. But I think his style loses a little something in translation. I think if he had a little bit more time to get used to working a U.S. style instead of a Mexican style, he would be high profile star.
Elaborate on what that means, by the way.
So he's an unmascarado. So he's a face. He's wearing a mask, but because he's wearing a mask, almost all of his interaction with the crowd has to be through body language, because he has no facial expressions. So he has to exaggerate everything he does to draw the crowd's attention to what he's doing. But in US wrestling, we get less of that because we do have the facial expressions. So he's doing a lot of calling to the crowd. He's doing a lot of extremely acrobatic stuff that doesn't necessarily work in a US ring. He's very entertaining. He's got a lot of charisma. You can see it coming off him. Like the guy just screams top of the card. Mm-hmm. But he's missing that ability to buckle down and get serious. It seems like we haven't really seen that even in the Jericho feud, with his family. That was the closest we got. And I think this tag team with Brody King, I like the tag team. They've done good stuff together. But his spots in this match, it just felt like he was always trying to end the match, which is great, but not when you've got another 15 minutes to go. Wrestlers should always be trying to finish the match, but it made it seem like it was being dragged out longer than it needed to go.
Zach Barber wants to know, so take the lucha out of the luchador? That makes no sense, Chris. It's always extremes. It's always set up the straw man extreme.
Luchadors in Mexico wrestle a style that is popular in Mexico. If you took Roman Reigns, if you took John Cena, if you took Cody Rhodes and put them in CMLL, they wouldn't be as popular once the initial thrill of having a huge name died down, because the styles are different, and you can't just work the same style and expect it to gel with people who've never worked that style. You can modify his style without taking away what makes him special, and that will make it a lot easier for people to work with him. You can't walk into, if you are an expert in coding in Python and you walk into a company where all they code in is C++, it's no good to say, well, this is how I code, so this is what I'm going to do. You've got to be able to adapt. And I think he can, and I think he will, and he's shown some signs of it. I just don't think he's quite got to that point yet.
And I think the idea is just go, what will work here?
Yeah.
Let's feature it. Let's amplify it even. And let's talk about it and keep there. But what isn't going to work? You know, one of the things we see with luchadors is and not, the announcers are calling it out tonight, is playing to the crowd when you have a wrestler down. And it looks undisciplined. When it backfires, it makes them look really bad. It didn't backfire tonight, but the 2 of the 3 announcers are going, he's waiting too long. He's playing to the crowd. And it's becoming more of an issue that's getting called out. And it was a thing Penta did way too much of. And, you know, yeah, it's like you're trying to win a match. You're not trying to get over with a crowd. Like when it's obvious you're trying to get over with a crowd, that breaks immersion. What's the most immersive the highest level of enjoyment as a wrestling fan is when you think someone is doing everything they can to win a match because it means the world to them. It is a lower level enjoyment. I promise you, when you're watching a wrestler and you're thinking they're trying to get a crowd pop. It just is. I mean, I'm sorry. Like the best football game, the best overtime in Game 7 of the NHL Stanley Cup isn't when a player is playing to the crowd before the puck drops after a stoppage, or even worse, playing to the crowd during the game. It's when players are giving it their all to try to win something that's important to them. And when you have wrestlers who look like they're trying to get over and play to the crowd, and I mean, I've made the point before, but
it's so. One of the most impressive things that I see regularly in wrestling is when somebody just runs and casually runs to the corner, jumps up on the top rope, and hits a move on somebody who's standing up there. That is far more impressive to me than somebody like Sammy Guevara standing on the top rope, telling everybody he's crazy, making a pot of iced tea, drinking it, having a nice biscuit, and then doing a 450 splash. Yeah, okay, you can get up there, you can stand there, but that's not the time to pose. Hit the move, win the match, and then pose till your heart's content.
Exactly. Yep. And it just says fake. Yep. And that's where just there's people who I just want Stan Hansen to like hang out and watch one of these shows and then just hold court for like 2 hours after every show for like 2 months and just drill it into this generation and have them respect it. People have been putting up, and Terry Taylor is like, the last, one of the last of the old generation guys, and he's trying to instill that in some of the NXT people over the years. And, and I know Seth was trying to get all the spots in NXT, and they were like, stop trying to get your spots in. We're telling a story here. If the spot works for the story, great. If we have a match and you don't get to dive through the ropes, that's okay. And Seth fought it. He fought, and he's still fighting it. Montez Ford, I want to see him have a match where he doesn't just look to the crowd and run and flip dive outside the ring. I get that's what he's known for, and also, saying we want the smoke, and it's just all about catchphrases and little moves. But it's like, come on, let's the foundation that you shouldn't compromise is we're trying to win. And if something fits into that story, do it. If it doesn't, stop it. Pull back on it. Yeah.
Brock Lesnar, perfect example. He could do a 450. He could do a shooting star. He tried it once, and we know what happened there. But he never had to do it. I think, and I could go on for hours about that. But remember the Hounds of Hell, because Pepperidge Farm remembers, but I don't think AEW does. I know Buddy Murphy's injured right now, or Buddy Matthews. I can never remember which one it is at AEW. I wish they had gone a little bit more different. Yeah.
He's injured. Malachi and Alistair, I'm still like, I got to think. Yeah.
Yeah, what a great signing that was for WWE. Right up there with Ethan Page and Ricky Starks and all those other AEW standouts who are setting the world alight. And oh, wait, no, they're not. Hey, look at Andrade, former Speed champion. That and $1.50 will get you a cup of coffee. I don't know why they just ditched that, because Julia's still there, Brody's still there. Yeah, Buddy's not there, but it seems like they've just given up on that faction, which I was actually really enjoying.
Yeah. Well, some comments. Pupil Parsons, who normally isn't watching us live but listens on the podcast side of things or on delay, says Sammy Guevara, Penta, and Bandito would make bad lifeguards. People would all drown by the time they made their way into the water.
It's like Jeff Hardy running down for the save and hitting his pose on the ramp before he gets there. Yeah.
Yep. Zach Barber defending, I guess, sort of. I understand your point, but it's hard for Bandito to unlearn everything he already knows. No, 100%. No, it's not. I mean, yes, I get why you're conceding that, Chris, but all you have to do, if you're Tony Khan or one of the agents, go up to him and go, stop playing to the crowd when a wrestler is down. In this wrestling culture, that the way we present, the culture of our presentation, I use that phrase, culture presentation, that looks like you're not trying to win and you're more worried about getting over. And it makes the wrestler who's on the mat waiting for you, it's disrespectful to him because he has to lay there for a long time while you pose for the crowd. And it tells the crowd you care more about getting cheers than winning. And here in AEW, the way we tell our stories is winning is everything. And that's your focus. So I want you to save that for when it makes more sense. For instance, if a heel retreats out of the ring and starts stalling, stand on the second rope, play to the crowd. The heel is stalling. There's ways you can incorporate that. But I think it is insulting, Zach, to say that Bandito couldn't hear a 30-second message from somebody in a position of authority and go, oh, never thought of that. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll do that.
I think saying it is very easy. I think listening is very easy. But when you've trained in wrestling for a decade or more in a specific country and in a specific style, it's going to take some time to get used to working a different style. I don't think he's hopeless, and I don't think he hasn't learned. All I'm saying is he's not quite there yet, and there's a piece missing. But
let's do it piece by piece. Let's go Bandito this week, and you might lose, you might forget or get wrapped up in the moment, but don't play to the crowd when a wrestler's selling for you and you're setting up a move. Let's just start with that, and just it's like learning to parallel park. You make a few mistakes, but eventually it becomes, for some people, second nature, and others never get it. But that's a bad example. I just talked myself into thinking maybe Zach is right. I really don't think it's asking a lot to just tweak a few things, but let him shift some of the stuff that he does that he's used to in a different context. I think being a pro wrestler, you should always be learning. Derek Mitchell wants to know, Wade, would this generation respect Stan Hansen or even know who he is? Adam Page said he doesn't take advice from people. Famously said that. So one, they should sit him down, and before he talks, they should just play some of his promos, show how the crowds react to him in Japan, in the AWA, wherever he wrestled, and show his matches, and I'd assign him. Well, I don't know. Basically, assign him to watch his matches and learn about him before he shows up, and they'd respect him. I mean, you couldn't help but respect what he did and the way he did it, Chris. Better than some old guy showing up cold and telling wrestlers how to work. And the key would be also, in fairness, Hansen would have to show a concede if he isn't following the industry. I know things are different. Here's what worked for me. Here's what I did that was efficient and made sense. Apply it to today's scene. But consider it. I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you why I did what I did, and I think there's something to learn. I think there's a way to approach it in a respectful way.
There is. I just think that a lot of the older generation of wrestlers don't want to do that. They don't want to approach it in a respectful way. And I mean, you listen to the way Jim Ross is. I mean, you can only imagine what he's saying backstage if he's saying that on air. That's without even mentioning that moron in Kentucky, who's just never has a good thing to say about anyone. If you want the younger generation to listen, you can't approach it as if when we did it, it was better, and now you need to do it the way we did it. That is never going to get you anywhere. The wrestling has evolved faster than you or I would like to admit. And the stuff that worked 20, 30 years ago, 20 years ago is still live sex celebration time. 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Doesn't work now, and I don't think it will. We will get back to that point because that horse has bolted and the stable door has been blown off.
But I think there's things that are timeless and things that time has passed by. I mean, I don't think you can broad brushstroke it, and I think people do that, and I think they throw a lot of babies out with the bathwater when they do that.
I think people who have the most success in trying to guide the younger generation are the ones who say, "Yeah, I understand this works. I understand that this is how things are now." But this concept can be adapted to match the way things are done now. Yeah. Instead of just going in there and saying, your match should end with a lariat after 10 minutes of headbutts and body slams.
Right. Of course. And I'm not advocating for that. And what I'm advocating for is the sense of, I want to win this match in intensity, how you play to the crowd, how you react to your opponent, what you do in between moves, how you stay in character, how you give off the vibe that this is life and death to you and that title means everything. And that you are threatening, and that if you see me outside the ring, and you don't treat me with respect, I will destroy you because you're a heel. Not wink and nod and try to get on. Like that's the culture that I'm talking about conveying. Not here's how to get a headlock over. I don't want people to. I hope that's just baked into understanding. That's not what I'm saying. Style wise in the ring, I'm not saying that. I mean the culture of the presentation of there's a structure and a parameter and a logic and an intensity and a consistency to what I do, and to make to give fans the peak experience, it's important for wrestlers to keep in mind all the time their goal is to stay consistent in their character with the goal of a heel to get booed and get the babyface opponent over if they're at their level, or plow through the babyface if they're below their level to get in, over as a threat and win matches. If you lose that, it all falls apart, and then you have to threaten to set people on fire. And this is a world title match between two top guys, and they still feel they have to do this hack stuff.
I think that's why people like Christopher Daniels, Jerry Lynn, they are respected backstage, and they're in their 50s. But they've wrestled in both generations, and so they have that sort of like a foot in each pool, and they can relate a lot easier to the Young Bucks generation, if you like, or the private parties and the people who are doing the flipping nonsense. And I think that is the key to trying to tone some of this down and to scale back some of this power creep, is to remind people that just because you can do a 720 doesn't mean you have to do it in every match.
Yeah. Adam Kidd said, if you aren't watching or tuning into the Torch post shows, you don't know. Some chat comments. By the way, you said pushing back a little bit on your assessment of WWE talent. Goodfella1422 said Ethan Page is absolutely killing it, in my opinion. I agree, by the way. Ethan Page
NXT.
is doing great.
Just
In
NXT.
But I don't think it's fair to group him in with the people who have reached the same water level on WWE main roster that they had in AEW. Zach Barber says Mariah May's been destroying it in NXT.
It's too early to tell with Mariah May. I think she hasn't been around long enough. But
yeah,
Andrade, Rusev, Malachi Black, Aleister Black, even Brian Pillman Jr. He's still there allegedly. They've done nothing, and even Jade Cargill has not lit the world on fire. She's been given every opportunity, but we're starting to see why AEW was not as high on her later on. But it's gone the other way as well, when people have gone to AEW from WWE and proven why WWE never gave them a push.
Joe Schmo says, agreed, the Mariah May stuff is overblown. She just arrived there. Give her time. Sadler says, Mariah May's overhate has gotten so ridiculous. I actually think Ricky Stanks has been a much bigger disappointment. Mariah's been fine, in my opinion. So there we are with that. Also, just some comments on Bandito, going back another segment. Bandito's been in some of the best matches of the year, without a doubt. But who is it that said they don't want to hear anyone talk about him?
Derek Mitchell.
Oh, Derek Mitchell, yeah. If one more person says he's the best wrestler of the year, my head is going to explode.
Off the top of my head, Will Ospreay,
yeah.
Shingo Takagi, David Finlay, Yoda Tsuji, Konosuke Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher. I mean, that's not very hard. Bandito has had a great year, and
Kane plays stuff in the chat. Says Bandito's had a great year so far. So
he's Bandito is extremely good, and he's going to be even better. And he's had some excellent matches. It just so happens that his best match was with Konosuke Takeshita, who is probably the best wrestler of the year, in my opinion. He's excellent, and he's going to be better, but he's not in the running this year. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Going back to the finish, we never really got, or I didn't get around to it. I'm fine with this triple threat. I think this would be the example of when it's called for, as opposed to it's so overdone. It's kind of like kicking out finishers, where it's so overdone, you just resent all of them, and you see them all as a cop-out. Brodito got over a little bit more than I think. I don't know that this was the original plan. So I'll read Sadler 3's comment, then first 3, and then I'll continue. I didn't mind the draw. I like ties in sports. The thing that immediately came to mind was this is a ploy to get the belts off the Hurt Syndicate so they don't have to get pinned and look weak. So yes, if you look at it that way, for sure. And that'll be lame, and we'll be critical of it then. But having a time limit draw and having a team the quality of FTR's heels, a team the quality of Brodito, who have surprised him. I don't think we should point out they're only 2-1, by the way. You want to make it seem like they're on a real last week. I would leave that statistic specific out. Shivani incorporated that, and Danielson said, yeah, in only 3 months. In only 3 months, they've gotten so good at teamwork. In only 3 months, I don't think we needed the exact record. It doesn't even feel like that could be true. I feel like I've seen seven matches, so I haven't looked it up. But according to Shivani, they're 2-1. But they really have gotten over, I think, and I think just the eyeball test is like, there's something here. This is fun. They're not a bookend tag team. They're the contrasting style pair. And there's been plenty of examples, Kane and Daniel Bryan, Adrian Adonis and Jesse Ventura. We could go on and on through all kinds of eras of that happening. So I think it'd be a shame to feed Brodito to lose to the Hurt Syndicate in a match that doesn't get a lot of build. But I would be okay with that. I mean, there's no shame in losing to Lashley and Shelton either. It'd be a shame to put FTR as heels against Hurt Syndicate if Hurt Syndicate are supposed to be heels. I don't know if they even believe in that, which I think is where some of the heat comes in. I think they just want to be cool and above it all, and we're ex-WWE guys and we dress. I don't know what's going on there, but I guess I don't feel like Brodito versus Hurt Syndicate had enough time to be worth feeding them to lose. But I don't think you want to do a non-finish or a cop-out finish either, nor give them the belts. Although if you're going to do a 2-on-2 match, I'd take Brodito against Hurt Syndicate and have him win, and just tell the story that this team's red hot, and have Hurt Syndicate throw a fit, show vulnerability, maybe behind the scenes humble them a bit. I don't know, just like, I don't know if humble's the right word, but like show them we're here to tell stories, not just prop you up. So I don't know. I mean, to me, this feels kind of natural, and I think they earned it with a really good long match. I didn't have a problem with the length of it. I know people don't like the forecasting of it, but I think anytime you get to 5 minutes left, you got to announce it. I just think sprinkle in some times where the match ends after the 5-minute announcement.
So one of my biggest pet peeves, and by that I mean the original definition of pet peeve, in that it's something minor that annoys me to an outsized amount, is that you never hear time announcements in AEW or WWE unless the match is going to a draw or very, very close to it, like with the MJF and was it Hangman or Ospreay? It was Ospreay, the 60-minute or 59-58 match. In New Japan, they give you the time announcements every 5 minutes, all the time. And that way, when a draw happens, you can't tell any difference. That would be an easy thing to do. It doesn't have to be every 5 minutes, but you could do every 10. I didn't have a problem with the draw. I don't have a problem with the finish. I don't mind the triple threat. When I say the match felt like it went too long, it didn't feel like a match that should have gone 30 minutes. It felt that they were dragging it out unnecessarily. I do think that the triple threat is going to make that match harder to predict, because you could see any of those teams winning, really. My gut feeling is that it's going to be FTR. I don't think they can handle another loss here if they're sticking around. They've just been out of that title picture for too long. But then there's no real tag teams in AEW anyway. Like who's next? Jet Speed is still there, I guess. They will probably be looking for a title shot. But other than that, it's hard to find a good team that's ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, when you rely on tournaments instead of long story arcs with earning a title shot, I mean, there's so much gimmicky ways to get title shots all across wrestling. And it'd be nice if there was, an example of long-term planning in the divisions that don't get the attention that they'd benefit from getting. I'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. Goodfellas says, I like this three-way tag match. I think it'll fit in well. I also like the idea of Brody and Bandito winning. Yeah. Derek Mitchell says, I do have a problem with Hurt Syndicate defending the tag titles in back-to-back triple threats on pay-per-view at All in Texas and El Forbidden Door. Yeah. I mean, I don't want them to do that a lot, but I wouldn't say don't do something that makes sense because it's the second time in a row, but be cognizant of that and, just take inventory. Going, are we doing this too often and why? And is there a way we can plan ahead and avoid this being the way to do it? So yeah. All right. Trying to think. I want to make sure we're not. We talked about event. Yeah. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. Tony and Tartan was always fun. I'm not quite so sure about the Austin Powers tribute, but it was a good match. All four of them can do excellent work in the ring. I could complain about Mercedes Moné and her general demeanor for several minutes, but she has always been able to put on a good match. And ever since she had that one match in Japan, she's seemingly discovered how to work again and just has been killing it in the ring ever since. My only issue with this match was if Mercedes was not the legal person for the whole time that they were fighting each other, Why was she not getting counted? Where was the count? Athena was on the outside, so she should have been counted out.
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes was in the ring illegally, so she should have been counted. And the referee said nothing until Mercedes started tapping out.
Where's Jim Ross when you need him, right?
Yeah. Like, I'm glad that legal people actually matters. That's great. But the logic of that whole part just kind of annoyed me. Not to a degree where I'm going to harp on it. But yeah, it was kind of frustrating. Athena, I'm glad she's getting a chance to shine.
Mm-hmm.
She started off a little rocky. I wasn't really happy with the way that she started in this whole angle, but she's got a lot better. She looks a lot more comfortable in the ring, and she's just really, really good. This is what people who've been watching Ring of Honor have been saying. This is what Rich Fan has been screaming from every rooftop he could get his way up to, which for a while there wasn't many, but as he's recovered, he's been able to get up there now. Athena should win. I don't think she will, but I think having her win would be an excellent story. She's just been kept down for so long, and to have her come and just actually show what she can do, I would love to see her win this match. I do think Mercedes is going to lose the title, but not getting pinned because it's a 4-way, which probably means Alex Windsor's going to win it because you're not going to give it to a CMLL or a Stardom person. But I was really impressed with the work of all 4 of them in this match.
Did they, this is kind of big picture was related, did they do enough to create interest or at least create more of a backstory in Dynamite proper on the Go Home show for the women's 4-way? Who are these other 2? They added the Young Bucks. Did they added the Young Bucks versus O'Reilly and Strong, not to Collision. They added that to the pay-per-view, right?
No, the Young Bucks are in the cage match.
Oh yeah, of course. So that was a Collision match. They had a graphic at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is, that's the thing. Oh, well, that complicates the issue more. They're throwing so much out there at the end of the show. Like, here's Collision. Did they do enough to have the old event center, basically? You know, like this is this lineup, and we got Swerve and Okada like in that video, and maybe the answer is pretty clear. You don't want to talk about stuff that isn't ultimately going to help sell it. If you don't want to cram for the test at the very end.
Yes. And the issue is, though, that Mercedes has been a draw for them. I mean, to the extent that anyone has been. And if you're not going to promote her match to the degree that you're promoting Swerve and Okada, Swerve sells the match on his own. He doesn't really need that help. I'm not really sure what the point is. That match, they were pretty much behind the 8 ball because they only got the confirmation of the Stardom person a couple of days ago, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. Persephone is not exactly a household name, even in CMLL, let alone outside of it. If we say that only a quarter of the people watching Dynamite actually watch New Japan, you could probably divide that by 25 to get to how many people watch women in CMLL. And Stardom is probably a little better off because they have some ridiculous talent there. But we're talking about fractions of your viewership know who either of these people are, and you're going to show one of them in the crowd, mention one of them by name, and that's it. For a match involving arguably one of the 5 biggest names in your company.
And I think they're trying to live up to the Forbidden Door format. After seeing the hype, is it worth keeping this concept, or do you keep it in your back pocket, maybe bring it back in 1, 2, 3, 4 years, but don't lock it into the calendar annually?
The first 2 years were amazing because there were dream matches out there to be had, right? I mean, God, I was in the building for Danielson and Okada, and I will never forget that. And, you know, you had Ospreay and Omega was still a dream match, even though it was a rematch. But then we had Wrestle Dream with Zack Sabre Jr. and Danielson. That should have been on a Forbidden Door. AEW signed the best talent away from New Japan. I don't think there are any real dream matches that we haven't seen yet.
So you're not traveling to see Fletcher Takahashi?
Well,
I'm not dissing on it. I'm just it is the one-on-one match that, like, well, it's such in contrast to what you said about the first 2.
McGuinness and Zack Sabre Jr. is going to be excellent and emotional for Nigel, I'm sure, especially in London.
Yeah.
I had actually planned to fly to Forbidden Door this year because I have family in London, but Air Canada was on strike and I wasn't risking it. So I because we don't cross picket lines. But the dream match thing, I think, has been and gone. We saw all of the real dream matches that there were to see. Let it rest for a bit and bring it back when you have some people that you really want to see wrestle. And I would love to see Okada take on Shota Umino, but for some reason they don't want Okada wrestling New Japan people. I would not have minded seeing something like Goto wrestling against like Hiroki Goto is the former champion, wrestling against somebody like Samoa Joe. Like that would have been interesting, although I wouldn't really call it a dream match. But Goto's off shooting Street Fighter, and they're not really interested in putting that sort of a match together, it seems. I do believe we're going to get the Ops against Bullet Club War Dogs, but it's not really the best of Bullet Club War Dogs. I mean, David Finlay isn't there, which is really weird. Maloney's from England. Robbie X is from England, so they'll get good reactions. Clark Connors is a very, very good wrestler, and I think people are going to be surprised when they see him in the ring and see what he can do. But you're missing the two biggest names from that faction because Gabe Kidd's in the cage match and Finley's not there. So I'm not terribly excited about that. The Ops are going to win. It's pretty clear. I think, just I think give it a rest, let it go away for a few years, and then bring it back when you have something to do.
Yeah, that's my vote. So I was just going to say about Zack Sabre Jr. Like, I get the idea. Let's mention him. Let's talk. It goes to the Kesh not being mentioned and what he accomplished. I guess they just don't want to. Tony Khan doesn't want to give valuable TV time to somebody who's a one-off. The feeling is no one's going to buy the show or not buy the show because we spend too much time or not enough time on Zack Sabre Jr. The problem is so the idea is there's people who know who he is and they're going to think, oh, this is cool. Whoever he's facing, hey, but it's not on America. It's if it's a show that's in an AEW city, it's like, oh, we get to see Zack Sabre Jr. There's a novelty to that. There's less so in this situation. But if you spend time on him, you get people excited about him, and then he goes away, there is a downside to that. And I'm sympathetic to the calculation that let's put it out there for people who know, but let's not spend a lot of time on it on Dynamite when we're trying to drive home these other issues. I mean, we could have cut out trying to set somebody on fire and got, done something, but the Swerve Okada video package was nice. How do you feel about doing something like that to build up Zack Sabre Jr. and the title? How does that balance out for you? Because there's pros and cons.
The problem is Zack Sabre Jr. is an acquired taste. He's not going to be to everyone's liking. I think you would have been much better off talking up the significance of that belt and the achievements he's had while holding it, being the only foreigner to retain the title in the Wrestle Kingdom main event, and then to do it 2 nights in a row, winning the G1. He won the New Japan Cup twice in a row. He's had a lot of accomplishments, but if you just show a highlight reel of him, it's just going to be him bending limbs back in very uncomfortable ways, an awful lot, which I love it. But it's not really a flashy North American style. He's not doing flips. He's not doing dives. He is extremely entertaining to watch if you like technical professional wrestling. They could have done something, but I think at this point you need a little bit more time than they have. And if you start telling his story, I don't think it gets interesting in enough time. Even if you put something on Collision, which again, was it half the audience of Dynamite that watches Collision?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is tuning into Collision to see if they do a Zack Sabre Jr. promo. That's
right.
They're not. If he's having a match, yes, but he isn't, as far as we know.
And Nigel's enough of a fixture, even if he has been mostly Collision. You can do sit down with him. But again, I think Tony Khan thinks about the minute by minute more than he thinks about the big picture. That factors in heavily, which is if I put a sit down interview with Nigel, do you know how many viewers I'm going to lose? But if you put it in the right spot and you do a good job promoting a main event or the segment coming up next, I think people will stick around. I think there's an overestimation of how the notion that somebody's going to stop watching the show they watch every week because there's a 2-minute segment with somebody who isn't shedding blood or threatening to set someone on fire or doing a high spot. I think you can trust your audience to, even if they're bored, they can look at their phone for a minute or two. Everyone's itching to do it anyway. It's not that big of a deal.
And I think even if they don't watch that live, they'll go back and watch it on YouTube later. Like that YouTube content does the best for stuff like sit-down promos. You might not want to watch the match because you know the results. But if somebody's doing a promo, that's the sort of thing that will get you some views on YouTube.
Yeah. So is Nigel getting attention on Collision with half the audience enough for the Forbidden Door concept? I mean, I'm not being really critical of it. I think I think there's pros and cons to it, and there's choices to be made. I just am against the philosophy that we can't put something on that's going to lose some viewers, because it's not like they're not going to come back. And I think that's overemphasized. But I understand there's a few things we want to stories we want to tell on this show, and our B show with a smaller audience is going to get some attention to other matches that aren't as big of a deal, and they're not going to make or break our pay-per-view. I mean, I get that. I could be sitting with Tony Khan if I work for him and think, oh, maybe we should get, and he makes his case. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to fight this.
So there's a couple things here. First of all, if the IWGP title has been around since 1972 in various forms. I mean, this particular form hasn't. It's the combining of the IWGP title and the Intercontinental title to make the world title, and we could go into a whole history lesson, or you could just read my New Japan primer, which is on the sidebar on PWTorch. But if you have to talk about how this is a secondary match, it's just proof that the Forbidden Door concept doesn't work. This should be either the main event or second from the top, because the whole Forbidden Door concept should be about, yeah, this is Hangman. He's the biggest name. And right below him is Zack, who's also a world champion. Mm-hmm. But as it is, you're making this very much a middle of the card match. And I mean, this is where I'm putting my analyst hat on, because personally, I am dying to see that match. I am a massive Nigel McGuinness fan, huge Nigel McGuinness fan. That flag came from a Nigel McGuinness match that I saw live in Toronto probably 17 years ago. Seeing him wrestle Zack Sabre Jr. is going to be phenomenal for me. But I am not the person that Tony Khan needs to be courting, because I'm going to watch it anyway. Mm-hmm. So putting Nigel's sit-down promo on Collision, where he is the commentator, might make logical sense, but it's not going to sell a single pay-per-view, because the people who watch Collision are already buying. They are already paid up. They are the dyed-in-the-wool fans. Collision doesn't have casual fans. I would bet money on that. Collision has the fans who are going to watch everything that Tony Khan puts on the air, regardless of when it is, where it is, or what the quality is. If you want people to buy the pay-per-view who weren't going to otherwise, you need to put it somewhere that those people are going to see it.
Yeah. Well put. All right, let's read an email here from JB from Detroit. I thought it was a good idea to start the show off with Danielson and Ospreay in front of a packed and hot Glasgow crowd. Great way to start off with a lot of energy and a big-time feel. I like that, Chris. Yeah, I like I mean, it made it I think got people excited about the setting of the show, the enthusiasm of the crowd, and that Danielson, who we don't see or hear a lot from, was going to be a part of the show. So yes, that's all good. I don't necessarily want to be reminded that Ospreay is competing in a lights out steel cage match this Sunday on Forbidden Door, even if it's purely kayfabe. This blurring of the lines between real and kayfabe injuries has had net negative effects on both AEW and WWE in the last month plus. Stop trying to swerve the fans and just tell the most compelling story, which they're pretty much doing outside of the critique. This work shoot injury stuff is totally unnecessary. I didn't mind that the first match of the night devolved into reckless chaos. It's a paint by numbers approach to increase interest in seeing the havoc that will likely ensue in the lights out steel cage match on Sunday. I'm not saying JB. Say that again, Chris.
I was just saying, okay, go off with the language. Like, that's pretty flowery.
I'm not necessarily saying it's my preferred method, but it also isn't ineffective. During his entrance, as Adam Copeland struck his pose on the ramp, he looked back as though he was expecting pyro that never went off. Did anyone else notice that? I didn't. I did enjoy Christian trying to start out the promo with his heel shtick and then having Copeland shut it down. that he's an asshole, but he's our asshole bit might be a good way to maintain civility between the two in the beginning of the reunion, leaving room for the story to evolve as they move forward. I do enjoy framing the relationship as a strictly business arrangement. This framing allows the emotions to naturally progress. I enjoyed Christian using the term scar tissue, a Wade Keller officially coined term. I really enjoyed Nick Wayne's promo tonight. He tends to be a lot more natural and comfortable when he's pre-recorded. I just hope he's getting better. Hope it's not the setting, Chris.
I mean, I don't think his pre-recorded interviews were very good previously either.
Yeah,
so even if that's the only improvement, it's still improvement. And I thought this wasn't just, oh yeah, that wasn't bad. It was a good promo.
Yes, totally agree. I think the original plan was probably to have Kill Switch / Luchasaurus interfere in the Wayne Sabian versus Copeland Christian match at Forbidden Door before the Nick Wayne injury accelerated the return to tonight. Regardless, I think that we get the same place that we would have minus the FD surprise return, as it doesn't sound like Nick Wayne won't miss too much time. It sounded like only a few weeks. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
Was making the tag title match a triple threat at Forbidden Door a bit of a cop-out. What I hope happens is Brodito wins the tag titles on Sunday anyway. Brodito and Hurtson break off and extend their feud in a rematch at All Out. Meanwhile, FTR goes on to feud with Copeland Christian at All Out. The Nostalgia Dream match doesn't need the titles. What I fear will happen is Brodito are just in the match to take the pin. Yeah, well, Chris, would you? I know we covered this earlier, but would you have Brodito win the titles?
I wouldn't be against it, but it's my third ranking of outcomes. I think it's too soon. I think Bandito as ROH World Champion and AEW Tag Champion is a weird combination, and I genuinely think FTR against Copeland and Christian is going to be for the titles.
All right. I'm glad they did a video package including both Okada and Don Callis tonight. While I'm looking forward to the Okada Swerve match, it's too little too late as far as it relates to fully utilizing the Okada Callis dynamic to build this match. Chris?
I actually thought, listening to that promo, wow, Okada's English has got a lot better. Ironically, right as they decide to not let him use it. Don Callis is a great manager. He is underutilized.
He's a very good manager. He's not great. Come on, let's not use that word loosely.
But I have a level above great, right? Like
I still don't think it applies.
But I mean, okay, Heyman, Heenan, Jim Cornette. I would not put Slick up there. Skandar Akbar, maybe. But then I think that Don Callis is the next tier down.
I think he has shown glimpses of it, and I wish he was more consistent in showing it. Yeah, so to me, it's the consistency that keeps him. He has had great moments, great stretches, but where you go, that's great. But it's just he doesn't feel to me dedicated enough to greatness to bestow upon him the word great. He seems to kind of coast through early praise he got.
I think the only person I would have close to him is Jimmy Hart, and I'd listen to Callis over Hart any day. Like Heyman.
How about Memphis Jimmy Hart? Really?
I didn't see a lot of Memphis Jimmy Hart. I can't really comment there, but Heyman, Cornette, and Heenan are in a class of their own.
Yep.
And I do think Callis is in the next tier down.
Anyway, you don't have to.
I think Okada's English has got a lot better, and he's probably able to carry a promo now. Ironically, Takeshita's English is excellent, but he doesn't get to use it either, which is a real shame. And I'm eagerly awaiting the confrontation between those two, which we've been teased with so many times. Yeah.
Sadler Version 3, by the way, says, I thought the Callis faction had potential, but they've been underwhelming so long it's hard to take them seriously. Yeah, it's just it is kind of like Callis and Don Callis and Kenny Omega. It's like it could have had moments, and then it just there wasn't that consistency week to week of I want Don Callis to go, I'm gonna own the next 4 months. I just want to feel that. He feels that.
I actually kind of feel like he's been hamstrung with the selection of people in his faction, because you got 4 people who are basically the same wrestler. And it sucks because all of them could lead a faction. Okada and Kyle Fletcher wrestle extremely similar styles. And then you add in Takeshita, who is probably better than all of them, but is third in the pecking order. And then Josh Alexander has just been relegated to the designated job guy, when if he was handled a little different and given to a different person, he could be a star too. Put him with Stoke and FTR. That seems like a great combination.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need 4 of the same guy in the same faction.
Yeah. Andrew H says, adding paid by number heels to his group hasn't done anything for any of them. Derek Mitchell said, I agree with Wade. Don Callis is good, not great, not better than Jimmy Hart, especially in Memphis. He's better than Jimmy Hart when he just got caricaturized in WWF. But that's why Bobby Heenan, if all you see is his WWF work, you go, oh, he was great. But best of all time? Maybe not. But his AWA stuff, when he could, the tipping point for me with Bobby, when I'm in the mood of saying he's the greatest ever, and I know Paul Heyman can make a case due to longevity, diversity of roles he's played with different wrestlers over a longer span of time, and whatever. I mean, I totally respect both arguments. It's like, what's a better healthy snack, a banana or an apple? Like, it's just like, whatever your preference. I mean, I don't know. There's my food analogy for the show. Bobby Heenan's bump taking was so good before he was physically not able to do it anymore. And it's part of why I'm a wrestling fan, is I got to see prime Bobby Heenan taking bumps. And go look it up on YouTube, AWA era Bobby Heenan taking bumps for Greg Gagne, how he sold the Weasel Suit match. I don't know that peak Bobby Heenan, that anyone, including Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette, reached peak Bobby Heenan level. And again, strictly AWA, I think Heyman has surpassed Bobby in terms of just WWE body work.
I think that's the bump taking is a point in Heenan's favor, but it's also unfair because he was a trained wrestler and the other two weren't.
Oh, it's fair. It's not fair that Paul Heyman is a good talker and a lot of managers aren't. I mean, you use what you have.
But being a good talker is a skill that you can learn a lot easier than you can learn to take a good bump. Callis takes excellent bumps as well because he's also a trained wrestler. I still don't think he's on Heenan's level, but if you're talking about bump taking, they are comparable in that aspect at least.
I just will disagree that we have to give Little League brownie points to somebody who isn't as good at something, so we're going to not count that because the other person is good at it. I get what you're saying, that you can improve in talking. And Heyman's, I mean, he went through a table, but I mean, Heyman is not going to take. No. Anyway, we're almost out of time. I could, this is fun conversation to have. We could do a whole kind of podcast and all that, point people towards highlights of both their careers. Let's go back to JB. No one believes Mark Briscoe is going to be lit on fire to his presumed burned death. Stop doing this, Tony Khan. It's a stupid, lazy way to justify a simple booking workaround. I have no problem pivoting from a long-term idea that isn't working, but pivoting to the point of jarring the audience week to week because you can't decide if you want MJF to have a title match and keep his contract or not is hack booking and not close to worth the cons. Be a brave booker. Pick a path and stick it. If this is a plan all along, it's even worse because it's really dumb. And not even that shocking because it's been so overdone in AEW. MJF basically telegraphed that there's going to be a beatdown interference to put MJF in position to lose the match and then cash in his Casino Gauntlet contract. Rant over. One scenario that actually wouldn't mind is MJF helps FTR in their match against Bandito and Hurt Syndicate. FTR then tried to help MJF cash in. The Hurt Syndicate proceeds to come out and beat up FTR and MJF, so the cash in fails. In this scenario, we tie up two loose strings with the sudden MJF Hurt Syndicate breakup and MJF's looming automatic title opportunity. And finally, the Mercedes TBS title fatal four-way seems rather thrown together. I'm assuming most people, even weekly viewers, don't know who the two out of AEW talents are, and they really didn't explain who they were until this week, which they did very little of. Alex Windsor has a lot of potential, but it seems too early for her to beat Mercedes. I hope that this feud extends. As always, love the show, and everyone go VIP. So thank you, JB, for that. Anything you want to react to from that?
No, I mean, I pretty much agree with a lot of what he said there. I think don't overlook the fact that Alex Windsor is wrestling in London in terms of the likelihood of whether she wins or not. I'm sympathetic to the view that it might be too early, but we do love
there's merit in shooting some of the top sometimes too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
but you got to be ready.
She's green, right?
Yeah.
She's been around for a while. She knows how to carry herself in the ring. And it's not like she's just come out of nowhere. So, plus she's Will Ospreay's partner, so that has to count for something. You got to keep your star happy.
Well, I won't mention another EVP back in the day, but it can be bad. All right, everybody, you can be on board for all our coverage that is not free by being a Patreon supporter or VIP member or upgrading through Apple. Full details on how to do that are at pwtorch.com/govip. You can unlock our massive library dating back almost 40 years of back issues of Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, hundreds of retro radio shows, 20, I was trying to do the math, over 22 years, I think, of podcasts now that are on demand and available, and then customizable podcast feeds for our new content and also flashbacks to 18 years ago. Also, you get ad-free, where the commercial breaks just skipped right over versions of our free shows, which is just nice to listen and not have the commercial interruptions if you go VIP. So full details on that, but we also have a Patreon option and an Apple Podcasts option too, if you want to just unlock our VIP shows. So check out full details, PWTorch.com/govip. Well, I was like hearing from you, so please do comment below if you're watching us on YouTube on demand. I would, I recommend doing that. There's a good group of people reacting to our shows. It's a common area. There's going to be other things that go on there too, but it's a place where it can also help in our algorithm in terms of being recommended by YouTube if there is engagement. And so please like this show. Please comment, even just saying thanks for the show, or I disagree with you on that still, Wade, but nice try. Whatever, throw those comments up. It does help with our engagement. So yeah, like the show, comment below, and subscribe to our channel. Most of all, subscribe to our free shows. Search PWTorch and search Wade Keller and get all our shows for free. Check out PWTorch.com, our main website, to catch up on our thorough, complete coverage of the aforementioned New Japan G1 tournament. Chris Landell's reports up there with many others helping, or several others helping out. Chris, anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
No, I'm contrary to popular belief, I am looking forward to Forbidden Door. Some good matches going to be on there.
Oh yeah,
and some intriguing outcomes. I'm curious how they go with Mercedes, and also with Tony and Athena, and how they actually get out of this Hangman and MJF scenario. So yeah, it's still going to be a fun show. The annoyances aside. On
the flagship yesterday, by the way, Rich Fan was with me, and we talked about the ruthless aggression of WWE in the modern era when it comes to going head-to-head with shows. We got news stories up on PWTorch.com covering that. Finally went official with a press release today, even though it had been a worst-kept secret. But, it's not official until it's official. So they're moving the PLEs. They're doing a special September PLE on ESPN starting early. We've got that covered. We also have a poll up asking, is it going to affect your support for AEW that there's now a show on ESPN head-to-head with All Out next month in Toronto? And there's several options for that, so you can. I encourage you to vote in that. And we're also asking, what do you think of Chris Jericho? I'll lean towards likely going back to WWE next year when his deal expires at the end of this year. And how do you want to see him used? As a wrestler, non-wrestler, main eventer, nostalgia guy, lots of options. So we got some polls up, and it is fun to vote in those and also see what others are doing in terms of voting. So yeah, check out our coverage. Lots of news stories up on the Jericho thing, WWE and AEW PLE. Some history, some perspective added to those news stories too. Chris, thanks so much. Been a real fun couple hours here talking wrestling with you.
My pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks, as always, to the chat. Oh, Zach Barter says, WWE can have him when it comes to Chris Jericho. I thought he might have something to say about that. All right, thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you Friday after SmackDown, and we might have an AEW pay-per-view preview show dropping later this week also, so check the Blue Logo show for that.